What's going on, guys? It's Rookie with Techbud Solutions. I hope your guys' morning is going off to a good start. So I am going live for today's, final day of week 3 of this $1,000 challenge. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in. If you guys don't know anything about Techbud Solutions, pretty much it's a small networking group. We're sitting at a little bit over 18,000 members now worldwide. And the thing that we do best is share best practices, share mistakes, and effort to promote growth. I can't thank you guys enough again for putting time aside and tuning in. I'm going to start sharing my screen so you guys can see my whole thought process when performing technical analysis on the series of stocks that we filtered out as of yesterday, and how we make the decision on to, what to invest in. Again, in no way do I want any of you guys to follow what it is that I'm going to be doing or mimic any of my trades. This is simply just for a learning experience so you guys could see how I identify potential and how I plan and execute according to my trades. And that is pretty much it. So I'm gonna start sharing my screen and go from there. Alrighty, so the Techbud Solutions group chat is pumping. So I usually like to focus on, just because again I'm a day trader, within the Techbud Solutions main group chat and then the pre-market movers, as I like to think, or like to see what everyone else is saying. Now there's the swing trading group chat, technical analysis group chat, the OTC stocks, and then the Techbud Solutions breakouts. There's a series of different group chats, right? They're all provided for you within the Facebook platform on the top pinned post. You simply click see more, but you do have to get accepted to Techbud Solutions first. Again, it is a free networking group. The link is provided for you down below if you guys would like to join, but let's get right to it. This is my Thinkorswim platform, and this is how I identify potential. So AMD was one that we were following up with. It had a resistance all day yesterday of $11.50, meaning that as of the high point throughout the day, it peaked out and nearly broke 11.50, but then saw a downward trend and held above 11.20. When performing my technical analysis and coming down to my stocks that I was focusing on, again solely just on these stocks that I have listed right here, I'm going to be following up and seeing how they ended up holding up. So there was a support at 11.20 and a resistance at 11.30. Obviously, as you guys could see during pre-market hours, support was broken. So this dashed line goes into pre-market hours. It looked like it went down, broke below support, and then all of a sudden started going back up, right? So it held above or broke above resistance and hit highs of $11.56, saw a downward trend, and is now holding pretty well above $11.40. So that's the new support. New resistance is $11.58. I am still in AMD with half of my position. And we're just gonna have to follow up and see how it ends up holding. It's still seeing an upward trend from this bounce at 11.40, and that's in a sense what we want to do. But we want to see if this is worth dedicating our time to, especially when the market's about to open, and then the first 10 or 15 minutes always being the most volatile. So let's continue following up with the different things. So now the support is gonna be 11.40. And again, I write it in just so I can, realize myself on how important it is to know where the support and resistance is. And by writing it in, I think psychologically it's a little bit easier to remember. Let's go with FTR. FTR had a previous support of 129 and 135. If you guys saw our technical analysis that we performed yesterday, did it hold? That's pretty much what we want to see. It looks like during pre-market hours, we're sitting at a high of 131. So it's still holding above the support at 130, 129, and there's a resistance most likely going to be around 134 to 140. So yeah, that one's still valid. Again, the volume not very good, pretty low on that one. So VRX. One of the indicators I really like to focus on is RSI and SMA, and I also started using the Boiler Bands to get a better understanding on how this is going to play out. So it looks like VRX during pre-market hours, which it tends to do quite often, saw a good amount of movement. So it went from a bounce of 11.42, hit a resistance at about $14. And if I'm not mistaken, that is exactly what we had played out. Well, that doesn't make sense. I'm sorry. That was supposed to be a 13.75. So at a 30-cent potential for margin of profit, it broke above that 13.75 resistance, And what I mean by that, the reason that there was a 1375, and again, I want you guys to see if you guys see this. I called out the support at around 1445. The reason I called that out is because if you focus here when it bounced and started seeing somewhat of an upward trend, that was about 1340 to 1345, right? So it's on an upward trend, and that's in a sense almost where it closed at. Now the resistance, the reason I called it at 1475 is if we see this peak out point right here, right? That's about 1375. Now it broke above that. And as you guys can see, now it's holding above 1375. And it's something that's very common that we talk about very often within our group. And it's that old resistance levels become new support levels. And then when it breaks below, if it does break below, 1375, then it breaks the support and now it becomes a resistance, meaning that it'll struggle to go back up. It's a very, good trend to know because you can see how important it is when it plays out. And it's weird, right? That how the stocks and the trends, go according to that. But it's a very common trend. So I want to make sure that based on my experience, I talk about that and how important that is. VRX, just in my opinion, is a little bit too high. RSI indicator doesn't show to be a good buy. If anything, it's going to be more on the overbought side. So let's just go ahead and move on again. PBR. This is one that I was actually somewhat excited to take a look at, and this is why. Well, already, I ended up closing at 855. I was talked about this one. We're spoken to about PBR within our group by one of our members, and this is what I want you guys to see. Is it had a resistance at around 910, and if we can break above that 910 resistance, this one was a gapper, meaning that it had a huge drop because of some bad news that it had within Brazil. So let's do a 5-day analysis. It has a margin of profit if it gaps from this $9.10 and breaks and the volume, plays out according to plan. Just know that it has a margin of profit from 910 to about 1040, 1030. So that margin for profit, is it worth it to invest for the potential for loss? Meaning that the potential for loss would be, if you get in anything above, $9, cut losses anything below it, right? Making sure. So this is actually one that is looking like it's going to be doing most likely pretty well. So this is definitely one that I'm going to want to set up a plan on. And what I mean by that is if it breaks above 910, that's in a sense where I'm going to want to buy and follow with a trailing stop loss as it rises. Understand that there's going to be a resistance most likely around $10 and cut losses anything below. What's the support? 885. So PBR price, target buy price, support, resistance, stop loss. If that's the support, then I'm going to cut my losses right below it. So 884. Then I'm going to do my purchase price, which is going to be 810. Target sell price is, I'm sorry, that's 910. I'm sure you guys are like, Ricky, you're wrong. Stop loss, yeah, definitely don't want that to be my stop loss. My stop loss is going to be at 8.84, giving it some cushion to move around. Potential for risk is 2.86%. Potential for growth is 9%. Again, growth being greater than the risk. Is this worth it for me? You can choose to cut losses wherever it is that you want. If you want to cut losses a little bit less, if anything, cutting losses at like 8.99, right, because of the 9 support, would minimize your risk there. So, that's something to look to. Looks like the resistance at 905. So, and it had somewhat of a pullback. So expect that. Especially when the market's about to open, just know that there's a good amount of pullbacks that are going to happen. And if you guys are asking what are pullbacks, meaning that it sees a really nice, consistent upward trend. Once the market opens, there's a lot of people that are most likely going to be trying to lock in their profits if they held overnight, right, from 850. And because there's a previous resistance at around $9, it might not go according to plan, right? That's why I want to make sure that it breaks that 910 resistance and really pushes through. So if there's a pullback, just identify the bounce, and this is something that I want to catch on video, or catch in this just analysis video is, if it does end up bouncing and then has a sudden pullback, it's all about catching it at the bounce. So if all of a sudden it drops very quickly to, let's say, this previous support that it had right here of about $8.50, then you're going to see a pullback, identify the bounce so it starts seeing an upward trend. I would decide myself to get in because I see that it's seen an upward trend. RSI indicator is most likely going to show that it's going to be oversold just based on hype, and then sell back at where it's at. So I'll show you guys exactly what it is that I mean by that. JNUG is actually one that I already did analysis on, and ended up playing out very good, especially for what's to be expected, right? It had like two consistent like almost red days, and then had a bounce here at about $18, and is now sitting at about almost $19. Ended up being a little bit above $19. Again, be ready for a pullback, but it has a sudden burst, and all of a sudden start seeing an upward trend. Just know that as a margin for profit to make up, right, of about from $19 all the way back up to 21.20. So I actually thought I was just gonna say 21.21. But all right, JLBS. I identify the support at 11.10, if I'm not mistaken. Resistance at 11.20. So again, still valid. Seeing an upward trend. So what could be a plan here? Well, if everything plays out according to plan, again, volume isn't really there for me. Current price is at 11.16, so that is a little bit higher than I want it to be because I want to actually sell at 11.20 and buy in a little bit closer to the support to minimize my loss. Therefore, I can set an alert if it drops below 11.12, and a simple way in doing that is just by right-clicking, click alert, and if it goes below, 112. And with that, I'll be alerted if it's closer to the support, but I'll also be alerted if it breaks this resistance at 11.11. But looks like there's buyers at 116, so if it plays out according to plan, those that cut it at the bounce, congrats to you guys, you'll most likely write it up. But if there's a little pullback, maybe we can get on in, cut losses anything below 110, and sell anything above or at 120, meaning that my risk for profit is about 1%, potential for a profit is about 8 to 10%. And it looks like there's a pullback right now, and we're most likely going to experience that in just a bit. CBIO. Again, I'm just following up with the stocks that I found potential in as of yesterday, and kind of going from there. So during pre-market hours or aftermarket, aftermarket hours, I found there to be a support at around $3.70. Let me just make sure I had that $3.70, and a resistance at $4. Do you guys see what I was talking about? The support here at about 370, 375. And then resistance, there is a slight resistance at 395, but overall, because of the old support that it had here, right, you do see, from this area right here, it was bouncing from lows of $4 to highs of 410. So it broke below support. That means 4 is now a new resistance. So I hope that makes sense to you guys. During aftermarket hours, you can see that it saw somewhat of an upward trend. It's now seeing a downward trend, very faint, right, very small. And it really comes down to, if we can catch it at the bounce. So if it breaks below support, just know that, well, it's not playing out according to plan, so we don't have to focus on this one. But if it plays out according to plan, we have a potential margin for profit from 372 to $4, which is, not your 10% potential. But when it comes down to it, it is pretty close if I'm not mistaken. So let's actually calculate that. It's about 7.18%. So definitely not a bad one. Let me go ahead and try to push through these real quick just because I'm taking a little bit longer since I usually just do this analysis in my head. Looks like support's still valid at 170, broke above that. So we might actually have a runner for NAK today. And what I mean by that is as a margin for profit to 190, if everything plays out according to plan and volume is good. NAK is one that's known for running, meaning that it sees a good bounce. So 188, just know that's where it's peaked out before. And right now it's at 175, which is used to be its resistance. So if it has a little pullback, has a support at 170, might be a good buy point. Resistance at 175, but if it can break above that, it's going to be around 180 to 185 to be the resistance. No aftermarket or pre-market movement. Wow. Yeah, it's just sitting there. So, I mean, I guess it's still valid based on my analysis, but you know, RSI indicator is good. SMA indicators, I mean, still showing signs of a downward trend. So if we can get above this SMA line, that would be ideal. Other than that, we really need to see a breakthrough. Now I'm going to look at the stocks that are seeing the highest volume during pre-market hours. There we go. JUG, AMD, AAU, VRX. TNXP, that's not a common one. Oh. And I'm pretty familiar with the stocks that usually see the highest volume within my watch list, and that's why it comes down to like experience. If you guys saw, I just went down this list. I saw which stock usually isn't up here, and that's TNXP. Obviously, you can see TNXP was seeing a consistent downward trend. Set its support at about nearly $4, so 394 to be exact, and then saw a huge pump all the way up to 444. So what's to be expected with this one, right? I want you guys to understand one of two things can happen, and it's mainly going to be almost one thing. And it had a huge pump, hit a resistance at $4.44, and you're most likely going to experience a pullback. So what that means is, again, identify the old resistance. The old resistance was around 426. Right now, it's currently sitting at about 450, or I'm sorry, around like 430, 444. Just know that there's going to be probably a pullback to the old resistance that it had. As we know, old resistance become new support levels, and then we'll see if it bounces. And if it doesn't, it will consistently see a downward trend. But if it does bounce accordingly, then that can be possibly a good buy. I'm going to focus on AMD as that was one that I was looking at. It looks like we are breaking resistance, which is great. And that's ideally what we want to see. Again, bounce at 140, which was the support, which was the old resistance. Remember that. And is breaking above this 150 resistance. And as long as we can break above that, that would be ideal. So this is definitely one that I'm going to want to follow up with. And I really kind of want to see what you guys are saying. So let's see. Within the Techbud Solutions group chat. It's loading. As you guys can see, people are just motivating one another, talking about what it is that they're trading, what they identify potential in. And we're off. All right. So I'm going to use my, let's see, Robinhood account to make sure that I, AMD, okay. To make sure I play it out according to plan. Looks like we're receiving a pullback. And again, that's what was most likely going to happen. Let me go to 1 minute candlesticks just because we're doing this live. JNUG, just got an alert for that. Pullback, sitting at 1146. And we're most likely just about to break resistance. Breaking resistance. Let's break above 1150. And boom. Went above it. AMD went above 1150. Again, that's what we wanted. So now what's one thing that you guys can do? Well, we knew 1150 was a support. So it's really pumping. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a stop loss 1150 to be my stop loss. Just in case there's a sudden really big pullback, just know that I want to lock in profits, right, with where I'm sitting at. AMD at 1150. There's a resistance at 1156. Now what, do I want to lock in profits now? I knew that there's going to be a resistance at 1160. And the reason why is if I can go quick enough, far enough back, actually hit highs of 1158. Simply to 5-day analysis. I knew that there was an old support at 1160. If you guys can see, it was holding and it bounced at 1160, hit highs of 1222, and kind of go from there. So I'm actually going to give it a little bit more cushion and remove that stop loss and put my stop loss a little higher. We're going to break above 11. Let's see if we can do it. No. Let's see. But yeah, old support was at 1160, so new resistance is at 1160. Just wanted to explain that to you to see if you guys saw what I saw. So cut it at the balance at the 1140. Resistance now at 1160. Are we going to break through? Again, let me go to 1 minute candlesticks. 1160, and again, it's not always 100% that we're going to break through, so you always want to have a plan. As we know that 1160 is the new support. Oh, broke through. Great. I mean, the volume is really pumping through, so we're really making up some room here. So should I put a stop loss at 1160 as that was the old resistance, now new support? Well, because it's so close to the 1160, it's at 1161. Do I want to just risk stop lossing out when it's seen such a nice upward trend? Just know that it's not always going to see consistent an upward trend. As you can see, we're receiving a little bit of a pullback. Right now it's 1158. Snap mark above 257. That's Snapchat. All right, so broke support. If the pullback is too big, then we'll make sure that we lock in the profits. Could we have hit our resistance for the day? I mean, if I knew 100%, that would be it. But a good indicator to use is the RSI indicator. It is showing that it's more on the overbought side, meaning that it could see a downward trend from here. So what I'm going to simply do is put a stop loss. All right. There we go. Breaking resistance, breaking resistance. It's not really doing it. Receiving too much of a resistance at 1159. And again, it really comes down to like 55, 57 support. So 57 is actually the support right now. So if it breaks below that, we'll most likely see a downward trend. Broke support again. 56. So it is seeing a downward trend. Can we see one more push through 1160? And this is really what's going to help me decide. All right. Well, I stop lossed out, meaning that locked in profits. And again, yes, I lost out on 7 cents. I put my stop loss at 1155. And the reason I did that was because of just this margin of profit that's built. And it looks like I did it pretty well. There's a huge pullback. And that's why you follow with the trailing stop loss to lock in profits. But in no way is that meaning that, it's going to continue to see a downward trend. It does look like it's receiving a huge pullback, but what could also happen was like throughout the day, it can continue seeing an upward trend and you guys can suffer a little bit more. But again, you never truly know what is that's going to happen. It saw a huge pullback, is now bouncing at 1145. So now it would be time to catch it at the bounce if it continues to rise. And let's see what happens. Does it break the support at 1145? How about we set our alerts? I'm going to set my alerts if it breaks above this. 1150, and then if it breaks above this, 1160, which I'm almost certain that it will based on my experience. Yep, and it's pushing through, and that's great. For those that wanted to get back in, I'm gonna try to move on to another one. Yeah, just one above 1150. So there's a margin of profit from here about 1%, 1.44%. So nothing bad. But I just think the resistance might be a little bit too strong at this current moment. and then all these lines are starting to catch up with it. So let me go ahead and move on. Now, one that we're looking at was the PBR, and how did it play out? Did receive a pullback again, and it's pretty much how we planned out that it was going to have a support at 885. Not too sure if you guys remember me talking about that, the support at 885. Now I don't have to buy in so high, so what could be my plan for PBR? Well, we know that, we know that there's a support at 885. Did build this margin of profit. We know that there's a resistance, and it's in an upward trend. So I'm going to search it up real quick. PBR, buy, order types, limit. Let's see. Did it get filled? Nope. It already popped up. Can receive a little pullback. 991. Of course. Let's see. No, it's moving up. Let me go ahead and cancel that order. I try to submit an order to get filled right now. Didn't get filled. Cancel that one out. And PBR. So again, not trying to chase it. I know where the support, I know where the resistance is. All right, it's rising a little bit quicker than. Can I get filled at 893? Nope. Again, I'm going to give it a second. It's on a consistent rise. We're going to see a small little pullback, and then that's where I'm going to try to get in. The reason we're most likely going to see a pullback is because of the resistance that it has at about $9. So there we go. That's the pullback that I was talking about. PBR. Shoot. Should have bought at, let's see, order types limit. $8.90. I think we could. Should we be patient and buying closer to the support at 890? It's going. Will it break? Let's see. This is what I'm talking about, being patient, right? Not just going based on hype, but making sure that you catch it at the right price point. It is showing signs of a solid bounce of an upward trend, but because of the old support that it had right here, about like $9, is now seeing a new resistance, and that only makes sense, right? And that's why I wasn't so hesitant to jump on in. But it is seeing a healthy amount of volume, does have a good amount of upside potential, and that's why I find this one to be so attractive. Looks like AMD is at 1153, so congrats to those that were able to buy in at the bounce. But I'm going to watch this one. I'm going to follow up with it, and it looks like TNXP is still doing well. 895. 1 second. So the third candlestick that is now going to be seen as resistance. Now we're most likely going to push on through, or really see a big drop. Stocks don't like to be sitting at a certain price point for too long. If the resistance is too strong, too many sellers at 896, we're most likely going to see a little bit larger pullback. So maybe we can catch it at a better bounce. But I hope you guys saw that. We saw it when it bounced at 887, and that's what I mean by catching it at the bounce, not worrying about getting at the lowest price. It had a previous support at 890, so when it goes above 890, make the decision. Set up a plan. Okay, I'll get in at 890, cut losses. Again, support still at 885. Anything below that, and my target sell price could either be originally where you plan on selling at $9, but you could also follow with a trailing stop loss. Like, make sense of it. If it doesn't make sense to you, then don't trade it. There's nothing wrong with that. That's 100% what I want to make sure that you guys understand. Looks like we are seeing somewhat of a downward trend now. And the RSI indicator is at 46, so it wasn't necessarily at the best price. And this is what I mean, right? So we're seeing somewhat of a pullback. Do I think it's going to drop all the way back here? Honestly, yes, because of the resistance that it's seen here. It might toggle around a little bit over 890, and it might not drop as low as it did. But let's go ahead and see. I want to see what you guys have to say. Let's see if I can get some of your guys' questions or remarks. Looks like there's a good amount of you guys watching. Again, I can't thank you guys enough for putting time aside. It looks like Jordan Spradley says no trailing stop on Robinhood. Correct. I just cancel the stop loss and move it as it continues to rise. That's the way that I do it. I'm going green today, says Jordan Spradley. Says Ricky, look into XGTI. I think that is one that we looked at that had a 14% gain. Let's see. Let's have to follow up with that one. It looks like there is a support now at 893. So what I'm going to do, and I apologize that I wasn't able to get to all your comments, is let me make sure it holds. But I'm going to put 893 as a buy. And instead of getting filled completely, I'm going to put, 40 shares, and then I'll simply buy while it's in an upward trend. And with that, again, I minimize loss, that in case I do stop loss out, I'm only filled with 40 shares, so not much. So my potential for loss, although it will still be 1%, overall only trading with in sense or risking those 40 shares is going to be a lot less. Okay, so we saw somewhat of a pullback. I got filled. It's 892. MTBC went last above 190, so that one's running. Really don't like MTBC. It's at 890, and of course, when I get in, it breaks support and continues to drop. Again, not too worried. Understand where I understand where the support is. So am I going to try to buy more right now at 890? Usually I would when I would have my larger Robinhood account, but now with this $1,000 challenge, I've understood that that's in a sense not something that I want to do, just because I don't have an enormous buy amount. And I don't know if you guys remember that I told you guys it's probably not going to bounce as low as it did the other time, because of the support that it has at 890, and that's exactly what just happened. So I'm going to buy a little bit more as it holds at 890. By 30. So now it's seeing somewhat of an upward trend. Can we get filled? There we go. There we go. So it is holding pretty well. And again, I'd love to see that my supports that I identify are pretty valid, right? Because it all comes down to identifying, the proper support, proper resistance to have a healthy plan in, trading. So we identified a strong support, identified a strong resistance. Again, this margin of profit isn't really what I'm going for. Obviously, it's not even 1%. What I'm really shooting for is I understand that there's a resistance here at about, maybe what was it, 910, 908. But the potential for risk, if you guys are just tuning in and you guys are just asking, why is it that I'm trading, is yeah, it does have, it really made up a lot of room as of yesterday. but it's a gapper, meaning that it has a lot of margin to make up because of the huge drop that it had. So I need to go a little bit further back, and if you guys see, it has this margin of profit from 895 to, about 1025. So with that being said, it has about 12% profit for margin if it breaks above that specific point. And that's why I find this stock to be so attractive. And I hope you guys see that. In no way, if you guys do not see this potential, 100% don't trade it. Continue performing your technical analysis and go according to that. But in no way do I want you guys to ever trade anything based on anyone else's opinion, nor should you, go into something that you're not comfortable with or do not understand, right? Because you as an investor have to make sure you guys understand everything it is that you guys do. I'm going to set my alert just so I can stay up to date when it goes below 890. And when it breaks, it looks like there's a slight resistance now at 894 or 893, I apologize. So it is seeing slight of an upward trend. It's just bouncing between that area and then going through in between the support and resistance. But overall, that is pretty much that's DGAS went below 935. Actually, DGAS had quite a pump, so we're gonna have to follow up with that one. But I'm gonna have to do that on my own time. I just wanted to end this live stream here. Thank you guys again so much for watching. I have a series of things that I'm gonna have to do throughout the day. I think I have a pretty exciting video. If it's not posted today, it might be posted tomorrow. But I'm buying another type of motorcycle, not 100%, but it's just a deal that came on through. And I really think that you guys will find this one attractive. If you guys didn't see yesterday's video, it was talking about how much my Corvette Z06 costs to own. So feel free to watch that. And then if you guys wanted to see how it is that I got these series of stocks that we performed analysis on this morning for pre-market hours, just know that I made a video last night that maybe a majority of you guys can see because it was uploaded quite late, but it was how I identified potential and how I filter out stocks to, in a sense, find like PBR and AMD and stuff like that. So I hope you guys enjoy that and find it useful. If you guys did, please feel free to give the video a thumbs up. We can't tell you how much we appreciate your support, and comment down below what you did good, what you did bad, sharing your best practices, sharing mistakes, as well as on the Facebook platform. We want to make sure that people don't just learn from my learning experience. PBR just broke 890, but from everyone else's. Like always, stick to your plan, learn, plan, execute. I can't stress enough how important that is. And always make sure you have a stop loss, minimizing loss. Thank you guys again so much for the support. Like always, let's make sure that we end the week on a green note. Take care, guys.